been a while.
It's been a minute. Actually,
3 months.
at least 3 months.
It feels like it's been a year.
Yeah. A lot has transpired
Mm-hmm.
in the last 3 months, so I'm excited that we get to just kind of talk about what's going on, what's happened.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this world, all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
And we are now sponsored by
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
And we just put together their little thing on there. There's a nation, a running man, and the word Dunkin'.
Yeah. We're not really
Nation
sponsored by
run
Dunkin'.
on Dunkin'. But no, we're not
No,
sponsored
no.
by Dunkin'. Someone just dropped us off before we started. So
Yes, and we're
anyway.
thinking that's amazing. We
Yeah.
didn't even expect it. They just came in and brought us donuts,
Is
and
this legal? Is this legal? to
I
do?
don't know.
I don't know either.
We're not sponsored by donuts.
Officially not sponsored.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Yes.
I don't even prefer Dunkin', to be honest with you.
Oh snap!
I know. I probably shouldn't say that out loud.
No. What is your choice of donuts? Or you don't
I
like donuts?
kinda-
Period.
If I do a donut, it's got to be like at a craft place. But so I'm not. I'm not a
Bougie.
big sugar guy.
Okay.
I love sugar, but age and health, I'm
had
reducing.
to
I'm just
reducing
reducing
it.
sugar. I want to be ahead of the game, not do it because something happens physically.
Would
That
you,
make sense?
yes,
Yeah.
but would you rather? Are you more of a sugar or salt? Because like people are like, or pasta. Maybe I should say that. Like, are you like carbs or sugar? Which one do you crave most?
Well, I do a lot of carbs now.
Okay.
So pasta, breads.
Yeah.
That's the
That's your
normal
thing.
part of my life.
Okay.
That would be very difficult to let go of.
Okay.
How about you? Are you sugars or
It would
pasta?
definitely be carbs. I
That
love.
would be the hardest.
That'd be the hardest.
be
I
the
think.
hardest, yeah.
Yeah. I
How
don't know.
about dairy?
I don't know. Like, I'm not a big ice cream fan, which everyone hates when I say that. But like, everyone's like, "Let's go get ice cream," and I'm like, "Meh."
What about like milk though?
Milk is cheese. Cheese is
Life
a big
without
one.
cheese is a
It's
depressed
sad,
life.
sad life.
It's a sad life.
Can't. No. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Like if I'm ever allergic to it, which I'm not saying that's going to happen,
Yeah.
I still think I would eat cheese.
Well, do you know I got introduced to someone made me dairy-free cheese in the eggs the other day,
Okay.
and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It definitely had like a twang. But it
How can
wasn't
it
as-
still be cheese if there's
I
no
don't-
dairy? Because it's like when they do like sugar-free cookies. I'm like, no. What makes a cookie is it has butter and it has sugar and flour.
Yes.
And whatever other. Once you take one of those ingredients out,
It's
you got to call it something else.
Like a scone or something.
Like veggie burgers. Like no. It's a veggie patty.
Wow.
Burgers mean meat.
Yes.
I mean, this is my philosophy.
Okay.
So I think at some point you have to no, just develop a new word for it. It's a cracker,
Yeah.
but it's not a cookie. Because once you take any of the essential ingredients out, it's no longer that.
Oh, I know what I want to ask you really quickly before we get into things. Hold on. I saw a memory pop up of you in the middle of nowhere, maybe Montana,
Okay. Oh yes.
in
and
a
that,
snowstorm,
that blizzard windstorm. Yeah.
and you were still hiking and still.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I come from a hunting culture. So we were born and raised in a hunting culture, and my family, we still do that. And we go to Montana. We've been going to Montana for almost 20 years.
Oh my
We
gosh.
haven't gone for a couple of years since my mom passed.
Okay.
But we're talking about resurrecting those trips. But my dad, my brother-in-law, and I, we would meet up with a couple of friends in Montana every year for years, since 2003. So a lot of years.
Okay.
So that particular video you saw, that was we had just gotten 2 animals, and we're having to pack them out. And packing them out, we hit that. It was brutal. That was intense, but it was so much fun.
I was like, I saw that video and I was like, no, just no.
That was probably one of
never
those
be in that.
extreme wind, blizzard, ice storms that it was weird because it was perfectly sunny.
Yeah.
It wasn't cloudy at all.
And
But
then
the wind just was howling, and it was picking up frozen snow. And so when
Just
you see the
pelting
video, it's just pelting. So
Yeah.
you literally want we had little slits in our balaclavas
Yeah.
just to.
balaclavas.
Oh, it's freezing, and it was negative, probably
name
negative
is-
20 or 30 just from the wind chill factor.
Wow.
But it was so much fun. If you can't hear us on the video, but we are laughing, and we're also trying to just survive.
Oh my, yeah. No, I thought that was pretty interesting.
I love how you segued from cookies
Sorry.
and sugar to hunting.
Well, I thought about like giving up cheese, and then I thought about other things that I didn't ever want to do, and that video came to mind.
Yeah, I like how your mind
Yes,
works.
that's how that worked. Anyways,
So we're back.
we're back.
We're back.
I'm excited.
And it's good to talk again.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot's happened in the last 3 months.
Yes.
A lot of amazing things and a lot of honestly challenging things.
Yeah.
So we're in one of those seasons where people ask me, how are you doing? I'm all the above. Like all the above.
Check all the boxes.
All the boxes.
Okay.
But anyway, it's been a great summer. Looking forward to this fall.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a hoodie today because I want to wear hoodies, although it's a little warm outside. But
That's okay. At youth yesterday, I wore shorts and then the hoodie on top. So at least it balanced it out.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
it's not there yet, but I want it to be there.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'm trying to do all the fall things. I've already shopped for fall things for my house, and it's just
Oh, you're already there.
yeah. September it came, and I was like, I'm there.
Are you a pumpkin, fall leaves kind of person?
No, but I'm can't believe I'm going to say this in online, but my husband. We have a nickname for him. We call him Jenny when it turns to the fall.
I did not know this about
Yes,
Adam.
because he loves all things fall and like turns into
Adam.
yeah. I'm talking PSLs, blankets, fires. It cracks us up. Like he checks all the boxes
Does he really?
for a
He
Jenny.
just, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's his nickname in the fall, and everyone that
Yeah,
knows
should
him.
Gift card him some pumpkin spice.
Oh
latte.
my
It's
gosh,
just
that's
something.
yeah. He does all the candles. He's like yeah. When people buy me candles, like if you know us, it's not for me. It's for my husband.
Okay.
Because yeah.
Now, did that translate into Thanksgiving and Christmas mood, or did it pretty much
He just
fall? as his specialty?
fall his specialty.
Okay.
Yeah, no. If he could wear UGG boots, I think he would. No, I'm just, that's mean.
Ugg boots are awesome.
Oh, no.
You've not had a pair?
Oh, I have. Yes.
Oh, they're so comfortable.
But it's a thing. So in the dance world, that is like, if you're a dance mom, you wear UGG boots.
Yeah.
So it's like it's
true.
a stereotype kind of vibe. Like you,
It's like what slides are to basketball players.
yes, UGG
Uggs is
boots
yeah.
to dance moms. Mm-hmm. It
Dance
is
moms.
dance moms.
You are a dance mom.
Mm.
Come on,
I
Shayna.
know, but I will never wear UGG boots. It's fine. So okay.
Good. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, all the things. What are we getting into today?
Yeah. So this was a couple months ago. Your
Mhm.
husband does this thing called Artist Spotlight, which
Yeah.
is really cool. Brings in different people to interview them on different skills and expertise, and so he's had all kinds of people in there.
Yeah.
So I happened to be the guest at this last one,
Yes.
and it was super fun. Art of communication, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. And someone had asked a question, and I forget the question. It was something around, I think, perfection, something around that idea. And so I shared this thought, and I think it'd be fun to go into it a little deeper today. I said perfection is an illusion, but excellence is attainable. And so we just kind of went there in that Artist Spotlight, which I think will be up fairly soon on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I think it would be great to talk about the idea of perfection and the idea of excellence, because people actually, at least ask me and others, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah.
And so those are my initial thoughts on perfection. I believe perfection is actually an illusion.
Okay.
It's not actually attainable. It's just something we've made up. But excellence is actually something you can attain, something you can actually move towards.
Yeah.
But I don't look at it as the destination either. So I look at it as more of it's a process and a journey. And so,
Interesting.
anyways, yeah. So I'm curious what your what is your thoughts? We can just dive right into this.
Okay.
Perfection and excellence. What's the difference?
Yeah. That's an interesting thing because it also, I think, has some connotations in the church different than it does in the world as well. Because the second that you say excellence, I feel like sometimes in the church, they instantly think, well, we can't say excellence because that means perfection, and the only perfection is Jesus, right? So I think it is even kind of a bad
There's some
subject.
theological and philosophical conundrums around it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. And growing up in the artist world, there's a lot of bad connotation as well for perfectionism, and because it strives. I think a lot of people strive for that, but there is a healthiness to excellence and walking our lives into excellence as well. So I think breaking this down is really important because I think it's got a negative side to it. Yeah.
There's so many like offshoot conversations. Another one, I don't know if we want to go into it, but we could at least introduce it, is I was asking somebody, we were having a church at the park a couple weeks or a month ago, whatever that was. And I got in this discussion around, can you be the best in the world and not have an abnormal amount of ego?
Ooh.
Like, can you actually be the best at something
Yeah.
and not have ego?
Yeah.
Or I would just, my phrase would be abnormal amount.
How do
Now,
you
obviously,
feel?
the question goes, well, how do we define ego?
Yeah.
And, I think when we think of most people, when they hear the word ego, they think of a negative, like it's that cocky, arrogant person.
Yeah.
And, and around that time, the Olympics were coming. And so you've got the short distance sprinters, 100 meters, 200 meters. And there was a show on Netflix called Sprint, which I highly recommend to watch. So fascinating. But one thing I noticed in all the sprinters, you have the Americans and the Jamaicans primarily in this Netflix series. The level of, quote, ego, confidence, arrogance, cockiness, just self-belief was so high.
Interesting.
Like it's abnormally high.
Yeah.
And so I think some of the conversation, that's a segue conversation from perfection and excellence. Then you get into the emotional side of it, of ego and confidence. And my conviction, you actually cannot be the best in the world if you don't have some abnormal level of whether you want to call it ego or confidence.
Interesting.
I can't find anybody now how it's expressed. Like some people, that person's not. So let's take Steph Curry.
Okay.
He's the easiest one because he's so well known now. You take a Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan had the biggest ego. It was the kind of ego that can be very destructive to people, to the culture. And if you follow Michael Jordan, do I think he's the GOAT? I think he's the GOAT. LeBron's in the conversation, but for the sake of the point, Michael Jordan is considered the greatest to ever play the game. But when you watch some of the inner working to how he's wired and thinks and perceives other humans and other teammates and all the support system to be the best in the world, the way he went about it, he had abnormal amount of ego. And it would extrovert, like you could see it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that guy has so much ego. Then you go to Steph Curry,
Okay.
who is still in his career, and people say, oh, he doesn't have. No. He has so much ego. He just doesn't show it. So I think sometimes we gotta differentiate.
What is?
Around, like sometimes we think it's someone that's really cocky and arrogant. Oh, that guy has an ego, or that girl has an ego, and someone that doesn't show it externally, we think, oh, see, they're humble. I'm like, I disagree. You talk to Steph Curry, the guy's going to destroy you on the basketball court.
Yeah.
Inside, he may not show it, but he will inside, I'm going to destroy you. And you can now look at his career. When someone attacks him in the press or someone says something to him in the game, like I'm going to blank out here, but someone, you're not going to score, or I'm going to own you tonight, or something of that scale. There's a switch inside of him. He said, no, I'm now going to destroy you. And you can see it in his career, even in the Olympics. The first couple of games in the Olympics, they just won a gold medal. He didn't have very good games.
Yeah.
So the media is going crazy, and everyone knew, like, you just woke the bear.
Yeah.
You just woke the monster up. And sure enough, the last two games, and especially the gold medal game, he took over the game, destroyed everybody, and they won a gold medal. So my point is, I don't think you can be the best in the world at anything if you don't have some abnormal amount of confidence or ego, whatever word you want to appeal to.
But is it that bad? I mean,
well, see, that's my point, though. Within Christian framework, we've always looked at that as like, we're not supposed to be that. And I'm like, I disagree.
I don't know. I was, if you read, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate, but if you read like anything that Paul wrote, I mean, he comes across as very confident and maybe filled with a little ego. I know everyone's going to kill me saying that, but I feel like there's something to when you know who you are and you know what you carry, there is going to be, I don't know if ego's that bad unless it goes into like a tearing down of other people. Yeah, I
think that's where you can start delineating, okay, what kind of ego or confidence do you want to walk in?
Yeah.
I think the difference between confidence and arrogance, for me, this is how I've at least summed it up in my head. Confidence is motivated by what it can give.
Okay.
Arrogance is motivated by what it can gain.
Yeah.
So for me, that's just a simple, like, okay, am I doing this because I want to gain something, whether it's attention, notoriety, gain something?
Yeah.
Or is my confidence in such a way I want to actually advance something? I want to give something. I want to elevate. I want to push. I want to, move things forward. And so I think for me, that's where, why is this connected to the conversation of perfection and excellence? Because I think sometimes the excellence within the Christian framework we are so scared of being confident,
Yes.
so scared of being having ego. We're just so freaked out about it, so we just really hold ourselves back, and we don't actually have a drive that drives us to be excellent in all that we do.
And I would say that it sometimes goes the opposite way, that we try to go so low that we lose. I mean, and maybe that is even a form of ego and pride, that we're trying to go so low that we start to doubt ourselves and cause this like, woe is me. And I think we could maybe even feed our ego that way.
Yeah, it's like false humility.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, like, I think we have to be careful. But I do think that this conversation needs to be had because for a long time we have, like, even different areas that we want excellence in, especially in the church. And then in other areas we don't. And we want, and it's just this interesting conversation. I was actually having this conversation with someone yesterday where, like, and man, we're just going to go there. But like even to the point where we as artists in the church will say, we don't really need to try to be excellence because then the Holy Spirit or God will show up on my craft and he'll piece it together, which he can. I totally believe that. But how much more could we go if we actually put in the work and we were excellent in what we did and then God came on it and whatever. So
I think for some, the Holy Spirit is a crutch.
Yes.
Or God is a crutch.
That's it.
And I think, and that's an interesting one to unpack. So I think we have to really ask the question, what is God's perspective on excellence? What is God's perspective on perfection?
Yeah.
What is his perspective on that? And I cannot escape the reality that throughout Scripture, God cares about the details. He cares deeply about that thread that is holding those two fabrics together.
Yeah.
When you read the building of the tabernacles and the temples and a lot of the stuff in the Old Testament,
excellent.
The level of like this ring to hold this wooden rod has to be this size, made of this material to this. Like God really cared about details. And somewhere along the line, the theological framework, specifically in more of the Holy Spirit dimensions of the church, to some degree, I would say probably more the charismatic Pentecostals, is when we think about the Holy Spirit, we think anything that has structure, order, or detail, we think quenches. We think, oh, that's not the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
We only think it's spontaneous.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we've gotten a little confused there. And so I find myself wanting to push the conversation more and more with people like, no, strive for excellence.
Yeah.
Strive to be the best at whatever it is you're doing.
I agree.
Whatever you put your hand to, like strive to be the best. Perfection's not, I don't think, could get that. What is perfection?
Yeah.
You know, like what you like what you're wearing, you love that.
Yeah.
What I'm wearing, I love that. So
Yes.
what's the better?
Perfection?
It's like what is, I think the idea that that is a beautiful design and that's not a beautiful design. It's like that's just really up to the person.
It's taste.
And so when you multiply that by billions of people, it's like, so what is actual perfection?
Yeah.
I may think it's perfect, but you may like, that's opposite of perfect.
Yeah.
So we can't really, I don't think perfection's really, I think it's just an illusion. It's something we make up.
Yeah.
However, I think excellence is real.
No, I agree.
Excellence
And
is attainable.
it does. And, the scientists have finally come out and said that there is zero probability that we will know reality as it exists. We will only know a fraction or what we perceive as reality, which is one of those mind-blowing things. But it goes into that, like what perfection is. Are we holding that to the culture standard of what perfectionism is, or is it to your standard? I mean, and so I think we need to just realize that perfection isn't really something that's attainable. So why can't we bring into the excellence? And I think it's interesting because I think we've kind of steered away from excellence, especially in the charismatic church as well, because excellence actually takes time and a lot of energy to develop excellence. And I think that a lot of times, especially in this culture, we just want things done really fast. And so we're like, okay, we'll just give what we have, maybe our talent. We might be talented in that area. And then we just create. And then we just are like, okay, God will show up and it'll be fine. But it's like, why haven't we taken the time to really build something out that is excellent? And it's because we're in a hurry.
Yeah, I think, we look at overnight success like, oh my goodness, look at this artist or athlete or communicator or leader.
Yeah.
Like that, there's no such thing as overnight success. I don't believe there is.
No.
There was years years of work,
Yeah.
and they hit a moment where something just catalyzed, something exploded, and they went from this moment to this moment. So that moment might have felt like an overnight success, but
Yeah.
the reality, most of those people, they have been spending years and years refining their craft, pursuing excellence, getting better, and watching that Netflix episode and like, how do you shave 0.1 seconds off 100-meter? And the level of detail and attention to detail was it was really remarkable. And you talk to anybody that's good at what they do. When you're starting out on something brand new, you're just thinking about big items. You're thinking about, you're not thinking about, okay, have your hands here at this point. You're thinking about just start moving. But as you get better at something, it comes down to detail. So even for communicators, you might be really good at eloquently putting together a talk, but the way your body language is on that stage is a total distraction.
Yeah.
So that's for even communicators, when the more you get to the finer detail of doing something well, then you're like, okay, how I walk in front of people now matters.
Yeah.
My words, my ability to put together a talk, okay, is what it is. But now my hand motions, my ability to go to a point and talk instead of just pacing back and forth. And so you start getting into finer detail. And so I think for people that are listening, I think there are different levels of excellence.
That's what I was going to say.
And so to me, excellence isn't like, oh, it's way out there.
No.
I think it's with my abilities, my skill set, what does excellence look like right now?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that's what I want to highlight. Perfection is this unattainable thing.
Way out there.
It's not,
yeah.
You never arrive.
Yeah.
But excellence. I used to coach, Candace and I used to coach our girls' basketball teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it in a private school for a couple of years. And then my girls went to a public school in 8th grade. And I was like, oh, I want to coach their basketball team. So I got a job with a elementary 8th grade girls basketball coach. It's one of the most funnest things I've ever done, coaching basketball. Had a blast. And I had basically 3 offensive plays, and then basically I had a zone defense and then a man-to-man and a box one. So anyways, without getting into detail, I had 3 offenses and 3 defenses and these are 8th graders.
Yeah.
Some of them are just learning the game. And so we would go play these teams. We actually went undefeated, but that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to go undefeated and to win that league.
Wow.
My goal was, at the beginning of every game, I said, girls, I don't care if we win or lose. I care that we play to the best of our game.
Yeah.
Like we played our game. We executed what we practice.
Yeah.
We execute. We adjust. I said, that's what I care about. And if we win, great. But if we don't, if we lose a game, and we actually never did that year particularly.
Hey.
But if we did, I would have said, you know what? But did we execute our offense?
Yeah.
And did we execute our defense? Great. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the word excellence more than perfection, because like our skill levels may be different.
Very different, yeah.
But excellence is actually something that you can accomplish in your skill set, and I can accomplish in my skill set.
Yeah, so maybe it's a heart posture even too, or you know what I mean, like a heart, mind, whatever you want to call it. But where we come in and we say, even if I'm starting, I can still have the mindset that I'm going to do this at the best of my ability, and I'm going to continue to grow, and that excellence is going to grow as well. So I think that's a big difference, and I love that because I think it gives us something even. I run into it like with, as far as dancing goes, especially in the church, people are like, oh, you want excellence on the stage, or you want excellence when you dance. And I'm like, yes, I do. But it doesn't mean that you can't be excellent at the very beginning of when you first start training. You just have to make the decision, like, I'm going to give my all, whatever that looks like. And you may never be a professional dancer, but at least you gave your all at what you did. And that's all we're saying is excellence. Yeah.
When someone, if a leader comes up to me and say, hey, can you give me some advice on being a leader or whatever, I usually ask them, how old are you? And how long have you been leading? Because where my leadership is around 30 years.
Yeah.
So how I define a good leader or excellence is 30 years of experiences. Yeah. And I'm always pushing my own self. But when I talk to somebody that's only been a leader for 5 years, and they're 25, I'm like, okay, that's a different dimension of whatever we define excellence.
Yeah.
Well, what that does, that contextualizes the information I share with them aren't going to be these small little details of leading. It's going to be, here are some big items to really focus on right now.
Yeah.
And one of them I would say is work ethic. Like, you need to develop a work ethic. I'm not even going to introduce to you other concepts because at this stage of my life, work ethic is not an issue.
Yeah.
I may work too much
I work too much.
if
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
stay aware of it. So work ethic isn't my dynamic. My dynamic now is emotional energy management, which is a completely different framework.
Then when you start.
So when I talk to a 25-year-old, I'm like, okay, excellence for you as a leader right now, you develop work ethic.
Yeah.
And that means show up on time and put in the extra work and go the extra mile, develop work ethic. And after 2 months, you feel like stopping, you keep going, and do this for years.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the framework of excellence I like a lot better. So I can look at a 25-year-old. I'm not going to measure them according to my level of leadership.
Yeah.
I'm going to measure them to what's actually attainable with their age, their experiences, all those things. And so I think that to me is way more helpful, but it doesn't let us slack off.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I want to just push the conversation more with people around, God doesn't care about excellence. I'm like, no, he actually does. If he didn't care about excellence, we wouldn't be here. Nothing would exist.
Yeah.
And so we have to move away from that framework, that concept that God doesn't care. He can use anything. I'm like, you're right. He can. And he will.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't care about excellence. He actually deeply cares about it. And so I think where the challenge for some is, am I performing to get approval? So that's where the spiritual side of this conversation comes alive. It's like, okay, so my pursuit of excellence, am I trying to do it because I'm trying to get approved by God?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different conversation. That's not the one I'm having right now. The one we're having right now is like, no, this is actually God trusted me with a skill set.
Yeah.
A calling, a design.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever that is, I want to do that to the best of my ability. Because I actually believe at the end of our lives, there is some account for our abilities,
what we've done,
our skills,
yeah.
what he's entrusted with us. And so
that's a legacy.
Yeah, and so excellence is a lifelong pursuit for me.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is I had a conversation with someone in the church, and not our church, a couple years ago. And they immediately told me I needed to choose between professionalism as a dancer or worshiper, because professional dancers could not worship. And I thought, wow, this is a really interesting thought process, because you've already deemed somebody that's professional to only be able to perform and not connect to worship. And I look at it completely different, because we say with instruments, we say, hey, we want you to know guitar or drums really well before you lead worship, because if you are there and you don't know your skill, then it could actually cause a distraction away from where we're going, right? Does that make sense? So I think for me, even as a dancer in the church, I think that that's the same. I think that if you don't know what you're doing and you're up there trying to lead, especially in dance, I think you could cause a distraction if you don't know when to pull back and just let it focus or whatever that is. So I think it's important, even within worship, that we find excellence in our craft and what we do. It's our communication. If you're speaking and you communicate and you're not, I'm going to say, not good at it, then you could actually interpret something that you don't mean to even say. So I think that there's something we need to be okay with the time that it takes to build excellence and to give our all, whatever that looks like. Yeah. So I think it's something that we need to bring back into the church.
Yeah. And we wonder why. Now, I do believe it's changed in the last 10 to 20 years.
It has
so
shifted.
The needle's moving. So that's positive.
Yeah.
But I think part of it, because others have been having this conversation around excellence and like your craft and all those things. And so the needle has moved and is moving. And at the same time, we wonder why standards are different in a Christian framework than they are in an environment that the values are not based around that.
Yes.
And I would say the reason is because we've told ourselves something about refining our craft, excellence is not good, it's not spiritual. We have all these verses for it. And I'm like, we got to flip that thing upside down and move the framework of our faith that actually does care about excellence.
Well,
deeply.
yeah. I mean, you see it in the Bible all the time. I mean, I think it's interesting. A lot of times I have conversations and they're like, well, that takes time or energy that I might not have. Like, I have this, and this. How am I supposed to ever be excellent in what I feel like I'm called to or whatever? That's what we have a lot of conversations around. But what's interesting to me is that even when you look at David, who was a shepherd and was killing bears and all the things, protecting the sheep, he actually became one of the best harpists
Hmm.
that existed.
Hmm.
And so when the king needed the best harpist, they're like, hey, go out and find the best. He is the one that they go get. And I think that's really interesting to me because I'm like, if he hadn't been practicing in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of his job, even, he wouldn't have been ready when the world needed him. We'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's like I would love to see us like, man, if we're pursuing Jesus, I mean, he did. I mean, we look at the universe; it's so detailed and excellent and everything. And I'm like, why would we not mimic that?
Hmm.
Why would we dumb it down to this small box of, hey, this is where we belong?
So if anybody listening has a framework that God can use anything, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
He can, and he obviously has used anything. He's
Everything.
obviously
Yes.
used
He's a donkey.
anyone. I
Yep.
mean, that is true.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's fine, but you should really work toward adding that God actually does care about details and excellence,
Yeah.
and move towards that. And and if you approach it that there's not an end goal. Like in other words, I have reached the pinnacle of excellence. Excellence is less about a destination. It's more about a drive.
Yeah.
It's more about a motivation to do things excellently. And there's a great verse in Proverbs that I forget the first half, but the second half is, and then eventually you'll stand before kings. The idea is that your skill, your craft, eventually it will be, and that could be the overnight success.
Yes.
Like, oh, someone that's really powerful or influential now sees your craft, your skill, and is able to open up doors that you could never open. So there is that reality of craft so I think of a guy right now in our community who has been refining his craft around coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Been doing it in this little coffee shop for many, many years, just recently branched out and is now doing his own thing.
Yeah.
But he is now gaining more momentum in different parts of the coffee industry,
Yeah.
specifically the creative, artistic craft coffee world. But it's because he spent years in literally a metal shed,
Yes.
20 minutes from here, hot room, just refining his craft. And
Wow.
it's like now he's starting to come out.
Yeah.
And so that's so much fun. And so to emphasize excellence, do the work when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Like just put in the work, and that will open up more doors than you ever realize. And I think about just for me as a communicator, the reason why I've been able to go to the amount of countries I've been to for the last 20, 30 years of my life,
Yeah.
to be able to travel and to meet some of the coolest people in the world and to speak in front of hundreds, if not maybe millions of people in the course of my 30 years of doing what I'm doing, it's because one of the reasons, yes, was it God? Yeah, God was involved, obviously. I don't want to dismiss that.
Yeah.
But I would also like to add, it's because I cared about the craft of communication.
Yeah.
I am not where I want to be because it's always out there.
Yeah. It's always out there.
But when I look at where I am today, where I was 20 years ago, I'm like, oh, I've come a long ways. I actually said, I'm serious about this.
Yeah.
I want to do whatever I can to elevate my skills. And that right there has opened up more doors for me. Out of all the skill that I have and ability that I have, that door right there has opened up probably the most in my life. It's just the ability to communicate.
Yeah.
And it has afforded me the ability to do so many things in the course of my life. It has allowed me to take my children around the world.
Yeah.
And they would sit in a classroom, and the teacher would ask them, 20 kids, and where's a city or country you want to go to sometime in your life? And my kids are in the classroom, and they were naming off all these countries. And my kids are like, they came home from school and said, we've been to all those places before they ever entered high school.
Yeah.
But it's because of a skill set of just, I'm going to be the best I can be at this skill set, had allowed me to actually expose my kids to cultures and nations and food and fashion and all those things. And so that's the fun part of this conversation. Like, forget the internal wrestle.
Yeah.
Man, get good at what you're doing, and you'll be amazed at what doors it opens.
Yeah. Do you think that it's like lack of insecurity, or do you think it's people have like stuff they're wrestling with that keeps them from going after it? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's people. for Christians. When I
Yes.
talk to people that follow God,
Yeah.
the common denominator, most of them, is they didn't know they could.
That's
It's
interesting.
almost like I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like they needed permission or they needed a different framework.
Yeah.
So whatever framework they have, whatever construct they had, is like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to. It's not supposed to get good at something.
Yeah.
It's we're so scared about ego and arrogance.
Performing.
We're perform. We're so
Yeah.
scared of that we just do nothing.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, God's a really good discipler. If you're a Christian and you're hearing this and you're concerned about your own ego and arrogance and selfishness,
Yeah.
then invite God in to disciple you in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we try to fix everything before we do something, and God's in the business of start doing something, and I will disciple you in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So that's my approach. I'm like, if I dealt with arrogance, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh wow, okay, I need to deal with that.
Yeah.
My motivation wasn't just excellence anymore. My motivation was now out of arrogance.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is I'm actually moving forward in my conversations of growing in this area, and I'm inviting God into those places in my heart to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So I think some of it is because people didn't know they could,
Yeah.
like just simple permission.
Well, yeah. I would say like good leaders also walk in excellence as well. Like you can see it. And I think there was a conversation you and I had a while ago. You said, would I rather listen to someone that sounds like they know what they're doing and is confident, or would you someone that tears themselves down? And I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I definitely would rather listen to the person that I believe actually knows what they're talking about. But I also there's the authenticity part, is I actually want them to know what they're talking about as well. So I'm like, I think there's this like great thing, and I think what I'm seeing even stepping into the youth pastor role as well here is the fact that like what I say, I want there to be confidence in that, but I also want the backing of what I'm saying is true as well. So I think there is that excellence of like, I want the time spent in the word. I want the time spent into what I'm that's tested by fire to make sure that there's confidence, and that confidence is real and it can be standed on. So
Yeah, I mean, you can usually tell when someone's sharing out of more theory,
yes.
concepts,
Yeah.
which is fun because like, oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But the ones that have the most effect on people or on an environment are the ones that have tested those theories and concepts
Yeah. It's the
and actually
testing.
have lived it, and they've seen it work.
Wow.
Not for a year or two, but like over the course of years. And that's a really dynamic. That's the people you want to be influenced by. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they're not just talking concepts. They've been doing this for a while, and they have evidence that it's working.
Yeah.
Something's working.
So there's a testing to excellence even.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I would say that there's definitely a, hey, I've tested this. That was garbage. This was good. So I went this way. And I think there is that like experimental like time in your life to get to excellence as well, or to cut the things out of your life.
I shared it on recently. Like, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success.
Yeah.
And it's like a Kobe Bryant mentality. He's like, he actually says failure is an illusion.
Wow.
I'm like, that's actually really powerful. And so I think sometimes in our pursuit of excellence, the other part would be we don't pursue excellence because we're afraid of failing.
Yeah.
And if you embrace more of the mindset, like, no, failure is actually going to help me move
It's
towards
the
it.
testing of it. Yeah.
Then that just should bring courage into us.
Yeah.
I can think of my communication, just my own journey as a communicator. There have been some really bad moments, like I'm done. That was a horrible talk
Yeah.
and whatnot. But like, okay, I got to learn from that. What can I do differently?
Yeah.
And so so I think that's a part of the conversation too. Like, excellence has a lot of failure in it.
Well, it's interesting because, the science world is built that way, in the fact that, like, hey, they know they're going to fail 100 times, maybe 200 times before they even gain 1 inch of the ground, right? And so it's just interesting because they go into that mindset of, this is my time to test to see if this theory even works. And then we go to any other world, and it's like that testing period is like seen as failure, instead of like, hey, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to test it. And I just would love to encourage even people, especially in the church world, to test things. I mean, we talk about that even in our youth team. I say, hey, we're going to try things, and if it fails, great. Then we'll just just, hey, don't do that again, and we'll try something else. But if we keep constantly testing things, then we gain ground and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what this generation needs. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a breakthrough that hasn't been a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, it's that famous statement, like talking about the impossible, that someone just was dumb enough to believe that they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Like, I think that's where the excellence comes in, because if you are training and you're testing all of this, then eventually you're like, you know what? I think this is actually possible, even though everyone says it isn't. So, yeah, I think it could be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would see something different in the church
Mm-hmm.
if that was the case, if we started really understanding that.
Yeah, I think we have to move out of a manufacturing mindset and more to a research and development mindset.
That's it.
There's a when you go to any great company, they have, like, when their product comes off the line, that needs to be as perfect as it can be.
Yeah.
As the best it can be. No flaws, whatever. So when we get our iPhones from our AT&T or Verizon, whatever, we don't want the research and develop version.
No.
We want the one that works really well.
Yeah.
But we all know for them to get this, there had to be
years.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of prototypes. And so I think if we can also make room in our Christian framework for R&D, like there has to be, if we don't have that, and because a lot of the Christian framework is around just black and white, right and wrong, and if it doesn't look like this way, it's
wrong.
And so it's very rigid, very linear, very defined. And are there things that need to have some definition in the Christian framework?
Yes.
I'm going to say, of course. But I think when we're talking about just pursuing excellence, we really should be more in the mindset of research and development and prototypes, and being willing to make mistakes and flaws and experience them, create them, so we can know where to fix it. So at some point, our skill set is like an iPhone. It's like, oh, it works really well.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's probably the mindset we have to have, is less manufacturing. Not on the moral issues as much, but just more on just as a human being excelling in life.
Yeah.
Like more R&D, just continue to research and develop.
I love that, and I feel like that needs to be a message at some point, because I feel like you were saying is this wrong or is this right? I think that's where the perfectionism comes in, especially in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you do this, then you are perfect. If you don't do this, then you're not. And it's this really sad mindset that we have in the church. But if we looked at it as, I think, the way that Jesus intended it to be, a time where, like, oh man, I've worked on this area, and then I've grown into this. Oh, ego's showing up. Okay, is that pride? Is that something I need to work on? Okay, yeah. Like, and so it switches, and we keep constantly growing, becoming more like Christ, instead of just finding this fake mask that we're like perfect and we don't go through things.
There's a theory called chaos theory.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm the most. I understand it to its ninth degree.
Yeah.
But the way I understand it, the idea is there's a spectrum. One end of the spectrum is manufacturing. Like everything is, quote, perfect. The other end of the spectrum is anarchy, total no control. So you got mass control. Everything is controlled and determined. And then the other end is there is no control. It's pure anarchy. Well, in the middle is this idea of a living system. So the anarchy and the manufacturing, and somewhere in the spectrum in the middle is where we want to be.
Yeah.
Something that has life. It's alive. It's not an organization. It's an organism.
Yeah.
And so I was meeting with a leadership coach. You know the story, but 3 years ago, and he said you need key words to keep you in the living system possibilities instead of moving into anarchy or manufacturing.
Okay.
So for us here at Studio, the 3 words were alive, devoted, and curious.
Yeah.
I think curious is one of the most important words in this conversation, because the moment we stop being curious, we can slide very easily over into just a manufacturer.
Yeah.
But we also need other words that keep us from sliding into pure anarchy.
Yeah.
So I think that's where alive, devoted, and curious for us had been kind of our parameters. Like, hey, alive, devoted, and curious is our way of helping to shape and build a culture that stays within an organism.
Yeah.
And have we made mistakes along the way? Many of them. Have we crushed it along the way? Yes.
Yes.
It's all the above.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can look at our lives, it's like, okay, do I want to move into pure control? Everything is just A, B, C, D, very static.
Yeah.
Or do I want to move to be out of control? Like, no, we want to be in here. So what are those keyword thoughts and ideas that keep us here?
Yeah.
And probably what keeps me in this middle space is the word curious.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
For me, I feel like I have a really strong character and a grounding.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I can sway into anarchy very much, and I definitely have no desire for manufacturing.
Yeah.
But the word that keeps me alive, keeps me moving forward, creating, researching, and learning is the word curious.
Yeah.
So for me, that word is actually really vital to me staying in this space where it's a living, it's alive, and it's an organism, not an organization.
What do you think that the word curious has kept you pursuing excellence?
Yes, 100%.
Do you know, is that,
100%.
I mean, I think that's crucial if you're wanting to strive for excellence, because it's almost this curiosity of what kids have. And that's how they grow so fast, I think. You know, I have, my oldest daughter right now is in the phase of why. And thank God we have Google these days, because I couldn't imagine being a parent without it. But it's just like, why is this happening, or why was this created this way? And I think, oh my gosh, I've never even asked that question or even thought to ask why that is that way. I just am like, yeah, it's what it is. And so then I have to like, okay, Google, why was this created this way, or why do we do this? And I love that, because there's so much, like, I love this generation that's coming up, because they have at their fingertips, if they keep being curious, they're going to start here where we all started here, and the knowledge that they're going to be able to obtain is going to be crazy.
Yep.
And I love that, but it also starts with the ability to keep asking questions and never just stay in like, I made it, because that's where I think the excellent dies, is when we like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, that's I think the other thing with excellence too is recognizing God has put something on you.
Yeah.
And living with that conviction needs to be really deep. So it's not just I want to be excellent in this. It's coming from, oh, God has trusted me with an ability, a skill, a desire.
That's really good.
We've been designed in this recognition of like, then I owe it to Him to become excellent in that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It could be one thing, it could be 20 things. So I think that's the other thing that I think it's so, I would say my drive for excellence, I have my own ways of doing it, I'm curious, all those things, but what's actually really driving it is, and this was 30 years ago, this is the one area in my life that I had no desire for it. And then I'd say, God, you either give me the desire or I need to do something else. And then through a series of events, all of a sudden I'm burning with the desire. That desire has not waned at all.
Wow.
It's gotten stronger. And so for me, there is a reality of like, this is something that God has put on my life. And I would say the same for you and others. Like, so our drive for excellence, it's fun. It's, you get better something, but it's also like the real why for those that follow God.
Yeah.
For me, that's what it comes down to, too, like recognizing, like, I owe it to Him to do my very best and to grow in this area and to do the best I can do for His purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my idea and what I like to see. So I think that's the other part of excellence that drives me towards excellence. Like,
cool.
I feel like God said, hey, I'm going to give you something that's valuable to me, and I want you to take this as far as you can take it.
Wow.
So I think that's part of it, too.
Yeah.
So it's not just only a personal conviction, it's actually a very spiritual conviction.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is fun. Okay.
Hopefully we're going to get more of a rhythm.
Yes, we are. We're planning on it.
Yes, and I know that you have some traveling coming up.
I do, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm going to go to Norway, one of my favorite places in the world. Beautiful people. And going to meet with a bunch of creatives over there as well.
Really?
Yeah, I know. we were just on a Zoom call yesterday crafting what a 2 or 3 hour evening looks like for a bunch of creatives. So I'm excited.
That's cool. That's fun. All right. Well.
So thank you, Dunkin'
Donuts.
For your non-sponsorship.
For your non-sponsorship. I love that.
And, yep.
Yeah. And if you like this, follow us, comment. We love the comments so that we can talk about you secret. I'm just joking.
Yep. Yep, sounds good.
All right. We'll see you later.
Guys.
Thanks.